especially during the August recess. But that's also going to mean that Republican senators will have to use parliamentary maneuvers to keep this thing afloat through the vacation. I hope they do that.
Yeah, I don't see how this is a political winner for the Democrats unless they're counting on the left-wing base of the Democrat Party that just thinks the world's going to end in 12 years, or now I guess we're down to 10 or 8. For them to no longer sit on their hands and get out to vote because of all the hundreds of billions of subsidies that are going to causes that I suppose they support. But the bigger damage, too, is this bill really should be named the Raise Taxes and Push the Economy Deeper into Recession Act. I have never in my entire career heard of somebody who thinks it's good public policy to raise taxes here as the nation is entering a recession. That prolongs recessions. That doesn't stimulate the economy. That doesn't give you the help that you need. It makes things worse. And why? For really what's essentially corporate welfare. This is a gigantic spending bill to give money to green corporate welfare. And that's what so much of the green industry has grown up into. Without subsidies, they would never be competitive, would never exist. And the more subsidies you give them, the more they're just hooked on government. And that's what this bill does. And Joe Manchin, a moderate? No, he's a mini Green New Dealer.
Is there any chance, exit question for both of you, any chance, Steve Moore, that Kyrsten Sinema says no? I don't believe it's possible.
Look, I think she could be Wonder Woman here. I think she can save our country. I'm praying that she stops this horrible bill. She would be a hero, Sean, in the state of Arizona if she just said no to this bill. It's bad for Arizona, by the way. Arizona, it kills manufacturing, and Arizona is a major manufacturing state. So let's hope that Kyrsten Sinema. It's amazing, by the way. There's 250 Democrats in Congress, and only one of them is opposed to this horrible bill.
Yeah. Ari, what do you think? Does Kyrsten Sinema go along with the 49 colleagues or stand up for the people of Arizona?
Nobody knows. I think her silence right now is telling. That would make me think that she's leaning on the no side. But the mirror image of John McCain, the senator from Arizona who famously put his thumb down to kill the repeal of Obamacare and vote with the Democrats, was a hero for doing it. And Kyrsten Sinema, who now represents Arizona, having the chance to come in and do the same thing on this recession-causing Green New Deal corporate subsidy bill. The parallel is ironic.
I'll believe it if I see it. I'll put it that way. Count me as a skeptic. All right, Ari, thank you. Steve?
At the forefront of what conservatism is, none other than James Golden, a.k.a. Sterling. A pleasure. Thank you so much. What do you see as the shift? Is the shift real? Are minorities truly leaving the Democratic Party and shifting over and taking another look at Republicans and Republican candidates?
Some are, but first of all, you don't need a tremendous shift. You only need about 10, 15%. Look, if Democrats lost 15% of the black vote in every single national election, they would never win presidency again. Yeah. Which would be a blessing for America. So it's not as if you need a complete shift of even 50 or 40%. You don't need that. And so what I urge is all liberal black Americans stay with the Democrats, and those who have conservative values or traditional American values, those are the kind of people that this party should make an effort to bring into the fold. Now, are black people leaving? Yeah, you would leave too if your neighborhoods were riddled with crime, and instead of locking up the criminals, they throw them back on the streets to prey on the people in your community. You'd leave too if your kids had to go to inferior schools while they whine and whine about what Republicans do. Republicans aren't in these neighborhoods. These are Democrat neighborhoods. They've been Democrat neighborhoods for, in some cases, 150 years. And what have the Democrats delivered? Crime, misery, a failing educational system, poverty, with no chance to do anything but complain about being victims. And a lot of younger people can see now the world isn't as monolithic as it was. There are so many sources of media right now. People can actually see what's going on outside, not only of their neighborhoods, but outside of their country. And so people are seeing now what the Democrat Party has done to minorities.
Yes, I have. I waited last night, but I got too tired, so I had to go back to the hotel room that I can't afford to go to sleep, so I could wake up and stay here all day, so I could drive back to Houston for 3 hours, tired, and risk running into a deer because y'all are filibustering instead of making sure that parents get to speak first when y'all are listening to people talk here who live here and people who get paid to be here. So I filed the first federal lawsuit against woke indoctrination in America, in Nevada. And I live here now. And if my daughter is taught CRT at all, I will sue you. If my daughter is taught SEL at all, I will sue you. I am encouraging every parent I know to sue you. To sue every teacher, principal, every system, everybody up the chain. Because we're tired of y'all. We don't need CRT. We don't need SEL. We don't need, hey, and listen, I'm an atheist, bisexual, biracial, homeless person. I want school choice. I do not want my child to be taught that just because she's black and a woman, she ain't gonna make it. I do not want my child to be taught that she needs to express herself sexually in her classroom. And in the Bible, there's no depictions of blowjobs. None. Not one. Let's do the context, right? In the Bible, or in Chaucer for that matter, there's no depictions of anal sex. That's not happening. In no classic ever. This is the context. This is what we're talking about. Y'all are tripping. Every single day we go to schools and we see our teachers lie to us. Lie right to our faces. And y'all say you have our best interest at heart? So why does everything have to be so difficult? Why can't we just go to people and say, hey, look, this is wrong, and state the reasons why, and then they fix it? Why does it have to be X amount of steps to get to where we need to be? Why do you have to be a lawyer in order to figure all of this stuff out? I swear to you, I promise you, I will turn this into a class action lawsuit, ambulance chasing business. And you're gonna understand the reason why teachers are leaving, because I had dinner with a teacher from Austin last night. They're leaving because they don't want to give their pronouns. They don't want to have to supervise people in the bathroom because they're having sex in the bathrooms. They don't want to have to deal with that stuff. They don't want to have to deal with these kinds of issues. And we don't have to invalidate all of these teachers' issues with their emotional support learning. We don't need that. Our kids are not your emotional support animals. Stop treating them like that. I'm a mother, not a birthday person. I earned that right with my cellulite and my stretch marks. You're not going to do this to us. We will fight you every single day from now on.
Ms. Clark, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. Are there any questions, members of Ms. Clark? Ms. Clark, I don't think so. But again, thank you for your testimony. Chair.
Well, it was one of the major stories to emerge from the 2020 election. It was the shift we saw in the Hispanic vote. Democrats still won the Hispanic vote in 2020. You can see by 21 points, but that was down 17 points from 2016. Hillary Clinton won the Hispanic vote by 38, Joe Biden by just 21. And you know what? The trend seems to be continuing in 2022. What you're looking at here, this is the average of every poll we've got out there that's been taken over the last 3 months that looks at the Hispanic vote. And you put them all together, Hispanics are now voting Democratic by just 13 points. So from 38 to 21, now down in the 2022 midterm polling to a Democratic advantage of just 13 points. What's going on here? Our next guest, Ruy Teixeira, co-wrote The Emerging Democratic Majority back in 2002. It argued that a diversifying electorate, including the growth of the Hispanic electorate, could make Democrats the majority party of the 21st century. 2 decades later now, though, Ruy Teixeira is now arguing that, quote, working class and Hispanic voters are losing interest in the party of abortion, gun control, and the January 6th hearings. And Ruy Teixeira joins us now. Thank you, Ruy, for joining us. It's interesting. I feel like I've been hearing for years, maybe even decades, that there were certain issues that Republicans could offer sort of as a bridge to Hispanic voters. There was potential for Republicans with Hispanic voters. And yet it really seems that it was during Donald Trump's presidency that we started to see this significant movement that's continuing now. Why did it start now?
Well, that's a good question. And I think a lot of Democrats are asking themselves exactly that question. I mean, it seems almost hard to believe, right? I mean, Donald Trump, the guy who said the things he did about immigrants and was, borderline or actually racist in a lot of ways, at least in his pronouncements. I think a lot of Democrats assume that should send Hispanics hurtling in the Democrats' direction. So they wouldn't carry them by 38 points, as Clinton did in 2016, but rather by 45 points. In fact, as you pointed out, Steve, exactly the reverse happened. There was a very, very large drop in the Democratic advantage among Hispanics. It was true nationally. It was true in almost all states. And we see moving into the 2022 election that it's probably getting worse. Some polls have Hispanics basically just tied between Republicans and Democrats in the generic congressional. This is, in the last off-year election, Hispanics probably voted for Democrats by about 35 points. So something happened that's sending them away from the Democrats. And my theory is that there's a couple of important things here. One is that I think Democrats assumed that Hispanics, because they're people of color, were sort of all in on this racial reckoning that we had in the summer of 2020 around George Floyd, and that generally they could be treated as a group that is very, very sensitive to these issues of race, very, very sensitive to the kinds of the dialogue around that, and sort of very sensitive to the issue of immigration, for example, which was something that Democrats always thought they had a big advantage on. And I think in the process, Democrats have lost track of the fact that this, as I put it, Hispanic voters are normie voters. They're voters who are concerned with upward mobility, with jobs, healthcare, their communities, their kids, effective schools, public safety. These are voters who thought the Democrats could be relied upon to do a good job in those respects, and who could be counted on, even if they're more liberal in the other party, not to be so liberal that it would turn off people whose values were significantly more conservative than where Democrats seem to be coming from. And all of that got lost, I think, in the transition from 2016 to 2020, and where we see the Democrats going today, where they become far, far more socially liberal on a whole variety of issues, which do not, in fact, comport well with the median Hispanic voter, especially the median working class Hispanic voter. Because if you look at the data, that's clearly where they're losing most of their support among working class Hispanics.
It is a very significant shift potentially in terms of the 2022 impact, and obviously 2024 and beyond as well. Ruy Teixeira, thank you for taking a few minutes and joining us. Really appreciate that.
The fate of a massive Democratic tax and spending bill was announced last week by Senators Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer. Still hangs in the balance, though. Moderate Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema has not yet said whether she will support it. A lot of questions looming over whether the package Democrats are calling the Inflation Reduction Act will actually help American families struggling with rising prices or hurt them. A Wall Street Journal op-ed argues the Inflation Reduction Act is an insult to used car salesmen, adding, like that lemon sitting at the back of the lot. It's giving a little touch-up, a fresh coat of paint, a reduced price tag, and a bright new description. But it's still the same car. In Focus now, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Great to have you in Focus today.
Oh, it's finally good to be with you, Harris. I know we've been talking about this for a while. It's so nice to be with you.
Well, thank you. And we have been talking about this for a while. And in fact, you know what? Let's start there. How did this deal come about so quickly and so quietly? Because you were a holdout like Kyrsten Sinema.
Well, I wasn't a holdout. I was basically opposed to the BBB at $3.5 trillion. And when it came down to it last December, I just couldn't do it. And I was just up front and told them I can't be done. And I can't get there, so that's over. But I always wanted to do something I could for my country, and this is all about my country. It's not about my politics or someone else's politics or my friends on the Republican side or my friends on the Democrat side or whoever's upset with me. It had nothing to do about any of us. This is about what can we do for the country, and right now inflation is the greatest threat that we have. It's hurting every West Virginian, I can assure you, at the gas pump, at the food store, and their energy bills, and just their daily lives. And if we have a chance, and I've said this all along, if I ever had a chance to have an energy policy that was balanced and we could basically make sure we're producing more energy for what we have rather than going around the world asking other people to produce for us, shouldn't we do that? Isn't that something we all wanted? And that's what we got out of this. It's a great bill.
And I've read the part about what West Virginia could see in terms of energy. We'll get into that in a second, but I want to hit what you said, because you are absolutely right. Everybody's focused on inflation right now. Every poll shows it. So, I'm looking at the Penn-Wharton budget model, which you, Senator, have been known to watch. It examined the details of the Schumer-Manchin deal. And actually, it said something very different than you just said. It said that the impact on inflation, this is a quote, the impact on inflation is statistically indistinguishable from zero through 2031. Penn-Wharton modelers are saying, we don't agree with those who think deficit reduction will lead in a straight line to lower inflation. But that's what the Democrats claim for their bill. So so both things can't be true. And this is something that they're studying. So are you wrong, or are you not giving all of the hard truths to Americans about what this is going to cost them in terms of inflation?
Let's say maybe they're wrong. Okay, there's other ones that said absolutely different than that. Moody's has said different. And you have the bipartisan budget policies. They've said, Maya McGinnis and her group came out. We had 17 Nobel laureates last year when I said inflation is real, it's going to be here, and it's going to hurt us immensely. They says, oh, no, it's going to be transitory. And 17 of the brightest in the country were wrong.
Let me ask you specifically what cuts inflation in this bill.
Let me ask you this. How in the world could it be inflation when you're cutting? My Republican friends always said, we got to start paying down debt. I've been a budget hawk my whole life. We're paying down $300 billion. You're saying massive expenses? $3.5 trillion in BBB was massive expenses.
You asked me a direct question, so I'm going to answer you. So how is it not a straight line? Because I'm not saying, and even Penn-Wharton isn't saying that it won't eventually get there in a jagged line. But you know how it doesn't? Because we are cooking a higher rate of inflation right now ahead of wages. And even if everybody were to go out and get a job or 2 or 3 jobs right now, their wages can't keep up with what the cost of milk, bread, gas, so on and so forth.
Don't you think we ought to get those costs down? How you do that? By producing. You've got to produce your way out of this. You can't sit back and wait your way out of it.
So you're going to open pipelines?
Absolutely. We're going to build pipelines. We're going to do more drilling.
How are you going to sell that to the President of the United States, who on day one
it's already been sold and bought? It's already been. It's part of the deal. It's part of the bill. All you have to do is read the bill, Harris, and you'll see. You're not going to be able to do any more offshore wind or offshore or onshore solar and wind unless we're absolutely doing more production with drilling and extraction. It's all part of a balanced approach. We need more energy today, and we also need to invest in the energy for the future. This is a balanced approach that everyone's been talking about, but everyone's upset for whatever reason because they're afraid it's a political bill. This is not a Democrat bill. This is not a Republican bill. This is not a green deal. This is a red, white, and blue deal, Harris. And everyone's having a hard time understanding that we can walk and chew gum and do the great thing together if we'll still start looking at our country first and quit worrying about our politics.
What they see is a senator who they thought was moderate, who might push back on some of the talk about forcing us into a green situation.
I have pushed back on everything.
Let's talk taxes.
And if you think I'm going to roll over, I've been at this for 40 years. I have never, ever, ever been pushed into doing something I didn't think was right for my state or my country.
Let's talk taxes. Another criticism is that this will raise taxes. The White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, said this when asked about Biden's position. Let's watch.
He promised it wasn't going to raise taxes on anybody making less than $400,000 a year, but the Joint Committee on Taxation says that is not true.
Well, that isn't correct.
So the Joint Committee on Taxation, which you guys heralded as an effective body when you were selling the infrastructure package, is not to be trusted here.
I said it is not correct because I will give you why it's not correct, because it is incomplete.
We got to know the bottom line on taxes.
Let me tell you the bottom line on that, Harris. You want to know the bottom line? The Joint Committee on Taxation? That opinion was only written by my friends on the Republican side. It was not done by the whole Joint Committee. So that is unfair, too. So let's be accurate what we're doing here. The bottom line is, how in the world can you be raising taxes when all we're saying is the wealthiest corporations in America, 55 of them pay zero to help this great country of ours, to defend ourselves.
Well, how does this change that? Because that's
minimum,
part of the corporate
15%.
structuring.
It's
right?
a minimum of 15%. The tax rate was at 35% before 2017.
Right.
Then it went to 21%. Mm-hmm. That was a tremendous savings, but that's not good enough, I guess. All we're saying is at 15% minimum, everyone in West Virginia I know, and most people around the country, pay a 21% corporate or greater. So why can't the greatest $1 billion of revenue a year, why can't they pay at least 15% for this great country?
Are you trying to also say, because this is the part that counts. I mean, people look at corporations and they know they've got great tax accountants. Heck, they have complete departments trying to come up with ways to find loopholes and to keep and to hire people as well. I mean, let's not forget that too. But $400,000 was supposed to be the cutoff, and I'm reading, and I am reading, Senator, that it's below that
now. Who's paying any taxes? Who's paying any taxes that doesn't have a corporation that has revenue of over $1 billion a year? Not one person. Not one person, Harris. You're assuming because they'll pass that on. The companies that were paying zero.
No.
Now they
I'm
have
asking
to pay.
a different question than you're answering. I'm saying Americans, $400,000 and below now are going to be taxed. Their taxes are going to go up.
That's a lie. That is a pure outright lie.
So their taxes are not going to go up?
Not at all. And you know one thing? How about the people that are going to be saving as far as on their Medicare, $288 billion who are paying higher prices than they should? Aren't they? They didn't even assume that in the evaluation. They didn't talk about any of that. How about if gasoline prices go down because we're producing more oil to make more gasoline?
Well, and those are going to fluctuate. Already experts are saying we could go right back up before Labor Day, but I want to hit that tax line again of $400,000.
Be an American.
I got to hit that. Are you saying that Mitch McConnell and others in the Senate are wrong about those numbers and that Americans' taxes are not going to go up beyond that point?
Totally, absolutely wrong.
Overwhelmed by the problems in the city, never lets up and shows no pity. Getting down to the nit and the grit, forced with decisions that may cause collisions. Messing with the flow of the universe, going from bad to worse. Now break it down. Growing up in the tough city, never showing no pity. Through all the stress and strife, from the city life, no more feeling pain. Take cover from the pouring rain. If you need some strong advice for the city life, breaking it down on the soulful sound that doesn't have an end while making amends, but never disputed by the FDA. All my party people say, hey, hey, hey. It's our time to blow your mind. Feel the groove. It's history in the making. We won't lose momentum, the outcome etched in stone. Never mind, let's rewind.
It's the unveiling of the rusty mechanism in full effect. The hip-hop dialect, push and eject, insert and play the cassette, son. Somebody asked for funk, we got it.
To capitalize on this franchise, not like the NYQB, breaking down barriers, the carrier of infinite possibilities, keeping my cool at 100 degrees at ease. This is my way to go, let my eyes see the things in front of me.
Make room for me to grow. Just feel this vibe. Time to prove and show. Hip hop, soul, and jazz inside of me. This is my way to go. This is my way. Never satisfied.
Control before life takes its toll. Whatever the situation is life you're facing, just let me live. Going into overtime, and it's by design.
Let me live.
Reaching for the top of the pile. It's gonna take a while.
Let me live. Just let me live.
Based on the paragraphs that I've stashed for this type of an occasion.
I'm just speaking through the way I'm allowed. So when y'all playing it loud, you can say that I'm proud. So everybody that supported us and down for the cause, have been around through this all, you at least deserve a round of applause. I'm grabbing this microphone and I'll keep singing live looks for you. Our music travels the world, we're gonna keep on doing it for you. I'm gonna let the sun come in and I'm doing it for you.
Let me talk about a revolution. Futures bleak, no hope for a solution. Firmly planning, taking a stance. Always looking for one more chance.
Satisfy your needs. One more chance. I'll keep it satisfied. One more chance. One more chance. Just give me one more chance. One more chance to satisfy your needs.
If I said it, I meant it. Wipe my tongue for no one, for no one.